Hi, I'm Mark Hadden, and this is A Queer Idea for Bent TV. I'm here today with John and Amelia. Hi, guys.
Hi.
And we're going to be talking about Youthworx Productions. Now, in a previous episode, we did talk about Youthworx. John, do you want to give us, for people who may have not seen that, just a little rundown about what Youthworx is?
Sure, yeah, so Youthworx is a youth media social enterprise that trains and employs young people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. We have a supported training model in partnership with the TAFE where we run 3 certificate levels of training in creative industries, and then at the end of that we've got a little business which we set up, which sort of grew out of the training program called Youthworx Productions. And the business is film production business, and we employ young people who've graduated from the training, as many as we can, which is 5 young people at the moment. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you're taking on the mantle of a professional production company.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Amelia, you're part of that production company. You're one of the lucky 5.
Yes, I am.
And so you went through the Youthworx program to start with, and then how did you wangle your way in?
Well, I was in the Youthworx training program for roughly 18 months, going through my certificate 1, 2 and 3. And near the end of my studies, a position opened up for a traineeship, and I applied and I got accepted.
Yeah, well, that's not wangling at all. That's dedicated work, isn't it? Exactly.
Thoroughly deserved. Yeah.
So, John, what sort of work does Youthworx Productions actually do?
Sure, yeah. Look, a lot of the work we do is little documentaries for a lot of community organisations, a lot of other not-for-profit organisations, for councils, for schools. What's really been really interesting as we've developed this business, because it was an idea which kind of just grew out of the program, as I said, but has been that we've attracted really fantastic work and a lot of really interesting social content, I suppose. We work with a lot of grassroots organisations who are doing amazing kind of projects within the community, but historically haven't necessarily had the funds to have their stories told. I think as the digital age has come in and the market's kind of flattened, more people are getting access to being able to tell their story, and so that coincides with our business in many ways. But what it means is that we get exposed to wonderful stories. So we're doing a lot of work with Indigenous communities. We're doing work with LGBT communities. Filming some of those projects related to that. And also working with education, schools, a whole range of different places. So yeah, it's really interesting social content. So the young people we work with get technical and artistic skills of producing films, working alongside professionals, but they're also exposed to rich social stories.
That's fantastic. Amelia, can you tell us a couple of the productions you might have been involved with, and what was your role in that?
Well, with a lot of the productions that I am involved with, I usually have several roles. Sometimes I'm filming, sometimes I'm editing, sometimes with Live Up, for example, I do a lot of the script writing. One of the first ones that I was ever involved with was a story called Recipe for Community, and it's got to be one of my all-time favourites that I was involved with. It's basically a program where adults with disabilities get together with young kids and they just hang out together. And it was a funded program that was run at Abbotsford Convent for the last few years, but last year was unfortunately its last year, but we got to capture those moments on film, and it was just really nice to be involved with something like that and be able to tell the story of that, even though it is now over.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The other thing I want to find out, Amelia, is how has this changed your life? Because I mean, before you did the Youthworx program, what were your circumstances?
Well, I had dropped out of school before I started at Youthworx at a very young age. At the age of 14, I dropped out, and I was kind of sitting around at home doing nothing. I have depression and anxiety, and it was a very large barrier for me before I managed to get into Youthworx. And Youthworx has been extremely understanding of my conditions and of the fact that sometimes I just can't get out of bed, and it's honestly been a really big relief for me finding work somewhere that has just accepted me for who I am, flaws and all, because it takes a gigantic amount of pressure off of me knowing that I can just email John and say, I'm not feeling up to coming in today, I'll see you next week.
Yeah.
And not feel like I'm going to get fired.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And John, obviously you do work with a lot of maybe, I don't want to say underprivileged, but like youth that are homeless and...
Yeah. Well, I guess the term has often been used is at risk. But I think the important thing from my perspective is I see the capacity or the potential in all these young people, and in a funny sort of way, I don't focus on those things. I really try and make Youthworx a place where they can come and almost not forget about those things, because we've got supports in place, we've got youth workers there, and we've got people who understand the background context. But I wanted to create an environment where when young people came in the door, the immersion was in creative production, so that everything was focused towards that, so that once you got in the door, I just wanted to make it a really busy, I wanted to keep everyone really busy doing creative, interesting work, because I think so much flows out of that. And I think when you're really engaged and there's kind of meaning, it gives you a reason to get out of bed.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes the focus, and particularly often for people who are, you know, so-called underprivileged, the focus is often on survival skills or food and shelter. And I think that obviously isn't terribly important, but sometimes it's engagement and immersion and creativity that will give you the desire to develop the survival stuff. So for me, that's what Youthworx is about, trying to create that environment. And like I said, I try and just see the young people for what they present to me. So I almost sometimes don't always know everything that's going on in the background. In some ways, that's good. There is people in our organisation who are more across that. But I just, when I see Amelia, I see someone incredibly talented who's got enormous capacity, and who you know, the world's their oyster from my perspective, because I see someone who could do just about anything, you know, and I see that with a lot of our young people too. I just see, you know, they might come, you know, they go through their moments like all teenagers.
Yeah.
But I just see this incredible potential, and for one reason or another, often in their environment or education has not necessarily been able to tap that. So our role, you know, is to try and create an environment where that can be tapped into.
Exactly. And you're definitely setting up people for the future. I mean, all these guys have got careers in television, film, radio in the future, and that's what the plan is.
Well, obviously with some of our young people, that's not necessarily the plan for everyone per se, because we understand it's a very difficult industry. So initially, the initial profile of Youthworx is really re-engagement with learning, and with that sense of capacity and that sense of, if I'm capable of this, I'm capable of that. So a lot of the work is around young people sort of having that experience and then kind of going, oh, actually, I want to go into carpentry, or I want to do that. But that re-engagement is given the confidence to go on to that. But then we recognised that there were young people like Amelia who could viably have a career in this type of industry. So, and that, hence we set up the business. But we don't, you know, like I said, we don't expect everyone to do that. But increasingly, we've developed a model where we employ young people and we encourage them to continue studying. So Amelia's doing Cert 4 in Screen and Media, and 4 of the other young people we work with are also doing Cert 4s in other mainstream courses. So there's that complementary skill development as well.
Look, we're going to put the email and web addresses on the screen for people. Thank you for your time today, guys. This is Mark Hadden, and this has been Queer Idea for Bent TV. Thanks very much.